Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing, publishing options and marketing ideas for your book. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more information at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn, and this is episode number 678 of the podcast, and it is Friday the 3rd of March 2023 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to my friend and fantasy author extraordinaire, Lindsay Buroker. I was missing the Six Figure Authors podcast, and I know many of you miss it too. And Lindsay is such an introvert that we don't catch up very often. So this is basically an excuse for a catch-up chat about author business, and we have a bit of a giggle as well. So that's coming up in the interview section. In publishing and book marketing news, well, the new CEO of YouTube posted his letter to creators online this week. Amongst many developments, he said, "One area creators are increasingly interested in is podcasting." In fact, YouTube is now the second most popular destination for listening to podcasts, according to Edison. This year, we're making it even easier for creators and artists to showcase their podcasts on YouTube. New features in YouTube Studio make it easier to publish podcasts, and we're also bringing both audio and video-first podcasts to the millions of people who use YouTube Music in the US, with more regions to come. Later this year, RSS integration will offer podcasters another way to upload shows to YouTube and give users more listening options. This is such good news, and it's so weird because it's kind of like what's old is new again. So funny that YouTube is saying creators are increasingly interested in podcasting. I mean, I've been podcasting on YouTube and even audio only for 4 or 5 years now, but every week, essentially, I create all the audio stuff and then I have to make a video. I use the MP3. I mean, maybe many of you are actually listening to this on YouTube, but I have to turn my audio file into a video file, even though there is no video, and then put that onto YouTube. So RSS integration, it's like, yes, finally. But audio only is a thing. And it really does feel like what's old is new again. And in fact, Lindsay and I talk a bit about this. And again, it really proves that you can make a choice. Like I made a choice a few years back to really be audio first in terms of my marketing and not to try and get into short form video and all of that kind of thing, because it's just not my thing. And so I feel quite happy with that, and that YouTube are now sort of reflecting on this and adding this as an option, which will bring more people to the podcast. So awesome. Also interesting this week, Seth Godin doing book marketing for his new book, The Song of Significance. So one of the ways to learn about book marketing, of course, is to look at what other people are doing. And I think this is interesting for non-fiction authors, but actually this same technique could be used for fiction. Now, Seth has written many books over the last few decades, non-fiction business books, and he has a big audience for his blog. He has an email list. He knows all the right people, and yet he still drives his book marketing. So once again, even if you are famous and you have a big name publisher behind you, you still have to market your books. And it's like, this is one of the biggest non-fiction business authors in the world. But he is driving pre-orders. So this week he put up a blog post. I'll link to it in the show notes as ever. And it's basically offering a free live behind the scenes webinar. To register, you have to pre-order a book and then put the order number into a form, and then you'll be added to the webinar. The webinar will also have door prizes. And Seth also made a couple of videos talking about the book. His blog post says, "It's possible that I've now written more best-selling business titles than any other author. Part of that is simply longevity and showing up, but most of it is your doing. The loyal readers of this blog, more than 20 years and still going," and Seth blogs every day and has done for 20 years. The loyal readers of this blog are the foundation of my career as an author, and I never forget it. So I wanted to share this, but also to say thank you to all of you and listeners over the years and my readers, because this is completely true. And I feel like sometimes we have marketing round the wrong way, which is we're sort of, takes time away from writing or whatever, and we'd rather not do that. But of course, it's about the readers or the listeners like you. And so there's this sort of push-pull tug feeling of, I want to reach out, I want to sell my books, but also I want to help people, I want to encourage people. And I feel like Seth is kind of talking about this too. But what's interesting is then he goes on to say, the realities of the supply chain mean that my publisher needs to make difficult decisions about paper, printing and logistics long before the book ships. Organising and talking with readers now helps make sure there are enough books in June. And hosting a conversation, Q&A and celebration seems like a good idea. So there's lots of reasons why he's doing this long pre-order. So the book is out in June. But like I said, I mean, Seth is one of those authors that I one-click order. So of course I just bought it. I don't need to go to the webinar. But over the years, so I've been to events that Seth has organised through his blog. I've done his courses. He's definitely one of my mentors from afar. I've read all his books. I was part of his first Kickstarter more than a decade ago, which was this enormous book. It's the heaviest book ever. And I bought that when I had just gone. So it must have been 2011 or 2012, definitely early days of when Kickstarter was going. And it was such an oversized book. I had to pay like £50 or something in excess shipping charge or something. And I could barely afford it at the time. But I've still got that book. And so it's so funny. It's like Seth over the years has definitely been a mentor from afar through his books and his blog. But it's just fascinating that he still does the majority of his book marketing. So yeah, if you think someone else is going to do it for you, think again. And that's kind of related to the topic that Orna Ross and I did on the Advanced Salon for the Alliance of Independent Authors podcast, the Ask Ally podcast. We did a show on how to make more money than the average author. And this was kind of spinning off the quite depressing surveys that you will have heard, saying that most traditionally published authors earn sort of less than the minimum wage and all of this. And we were sick of the disempowering message of these surveys. And we want you to earn more money than the average author. And so we give lots of tips in that episode. Just search for Ask Ally, ALLI, on your app, or search for Orna Ross, ORNAROSS, and that should come up. That was out, as this goes out, it was out a few days ago. And I mean, our tips are nothing new. Like, there is no secret. There's no secret. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It really is that, as with the interview with Lindsay coming up and some of the things we talk about, it's simple, but it's not easy. It really is showing up year after year, as Seth said as well. Also, just a reminder that the Alliance of Independent Authors is doing an income survey to try and shed more light on independent author incomes. The survey is aimed at self-published authors who spend more than 50% of their time on writing and publishing. It is pretty short, so you can do it quickly. And they really need some more data in this area. Go to selfpublishingadvice.org/survey23, and hopefully you'll still have time to do that. It is really quick once you've got your numbers for last year. Plus, I can't go a week without mentioning AI. Well, interestingly enough, the Authors Guild has updated their model contract with a new clause. So this is a clause that they would expect to be in a publishing contract. I think it would be very interesting whether this does get adopted. Of course, something in a model contract is not necessarily in a real contract. But the clause is no generative AI training use. So it is an expressly, I'll read it. It says, the author expressly prohibits the publisher from using the work in any manner for purposes of training artificial intelligence technologies to generate text, including without limitation technologies that are capable of generating works in the same style or genre as the work. The author reserves all rights to license uses of the work for generative AI training and the development of machine learning language models. Publisher will use best efforts to include a limitation in any sub-license of the work, prohibiting the use of the work for training and developing generative AI technologies. So that's on the authorsguild.org, links in the show notes. Now, this is interesting because, as ever, I'm always way early, but I did propose a sub-license for training data in my 2020 book, Artificial Intelligence, Blockchain and Virtual Worlds. So basically, this clause says the author reserves rights to license uses of the work for generative AI training. This is what I would like. And I've mentioned it before, I would love to get together with a whole load of indie thriller writers and say, look, you can license our work for training your model, fine-tuning the model on this kind of thriller. And I think that this is another revenue stream for people. I would be very happy to license my copyright work for that. Of course, publishers have no need to add that clause. And in fact, they have many years of contracts without that clause, and if you've assigned a lot more of copyright to a publisher, then they probably do have the right. It's difficult to know. What is more interesting is whether there will be some kind of addendum that will just be passed around, as there was for ebooks or digital rights back in the day, over a decade ago, probably 20 years ago now. So difficult how old we are. But, 15 to 20 years ago, authors were sent an addendum essentially saying, we've got all your print rights, but how about you just give us your digital rights? We don't really know what this is, but if you give it to us, we'll make some money. Of course, it was a lot more official than that. But many people just signed it as it was unclear what those rights might turn into in the next decade. J.K. Rowling famously did not sign it, hence why she has a multi-billion-dollar business with Pottermore. So if you are traditionally published, don't just sign an addendum without thinking about the ramifications for the next decade. This is day one, as ever, for generative AI, so it's going to be very interesting where this goes. So in my personal update, I put the photos up from my Washington, D.C. long weekend on Books and Travel as a blog post. So I'll link to it in the show notes, or just go to booksandtravel.page, and the Washington, D.C. trip is there, all my photos. It was absolutely freezing, but the sky was very blue. So I got some really beautiful pictures of architecture. I love architecture, and the Library of Congress and some of those other things. Feels like ages ago already because the year is just speeding along. Other things, I was also on the Right Now with Scrivener podcast, talking about how I use Scrivener in writing and also tips on the author business. You can find that, just search Scrivener on your podcast app or Right Now, or links in the show notes. I also had my trip to Peterborough this week to see the Book Vault printing plant and to sign all my hardbacks. I love factories and machines. I just love seeing all these things working. It's like, that's so cool. It's just brilliant. I also signed 250 books, and they're all in the post. And many of you, thank you so much, have started telling me it's arrived. You can see pictures of the signing on Facebook and Instagram at JF Penn Author. It was quite an epic road trip. I don't usually drive so far, but well worth doing. And thanks so much to the Book Vault guys, Alex and Curtis, who just helped me out with that. And that was brilliant. If you did get a signed book, there's a sticker. It's a sticker on the front page, but the actual signature is on the title page. And I do have a bit of a scroll. Someone messaged me and said, I can't see your signature. And I'm like, yeah, it's not on the same page as the sticker. I just have the writing setting course left to finish, and I've prepared all the slides. I've set up the teachable pages and everything, and I'll be recording it this week. My neighbour has been doing their bathroom, so it's been too noisy to record. But that will be for sale it will go out to the Kickstarter backers, but then it will also be for sale at thecreativepenn.com/learn, probably by the middle of March. So that will go out then. It's a craft. It's like a writing craft workshop course. I also have consulting sessions from the Kickstarter spread out over the next year, but basically I'm almost done. Well, I say almost done. I'm almost done with the first bit. I walked the Camino in September, but I've been writing this book for years, but I finished it in November, and then of course the Kickstarter. So it's been an epic project. And I'm using a lot of finishing energy to get it done. But of course, it's not even published on the rest of the stores. And my finishing energy needs to include actually publishing it elsewhere and also launching it kind of a second time around once it's available everywhere else. So making the most of an asset for sure. And of course, I will share lessons learned once I've finished. Also, with Kickstarter, I have tried so hard to get hold of everyone, but there are 3 people I cannot get hold of. So I'm not going to mention their full names, but I am going to mention their first name and their initial. If you are Karen B, Shannon M, or Bradley C, if that is you and you supported by Kickstarter, please email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Basically, some of these Kickstarter emails don't go through, and I've tried emailing from my accounts, various accounts. I've tried social media. I mean, it's just hilarious. But I realise that some people just kind of forget that they spent some money, but I really want my need to finish things says I must get these books to these people. So thanks for all your emails and tweets and comments this week. On Pierre's interview on YouTube, the atheist Paladin says, "Good podcast. I would always go wide. I refuse to be put on the whims of the almighty Zon. I have seen too many authors have bad days for no fault of their own." Yes, it is nice to take back control of at least some of our publishing. And Solmi Pedramon sent me a tweet, sent a picture on the way home at the supermarket saying, "On my way home from work in the trusty 95 Honda Civic, listening to an old episode, stopping at Vice Markets to pick up some dinner. Just a day, but a nice one." And I love that because I really appreciate being in your car or on your podcast a podcast app as you do your chores. I mean, that's when I listen to podcasts. It really is generally when I'm doing cooking or cleaning or walking places. So I love being part of your normal life. So please do send me a picture of where you're listening, even if it's completely normal. You can tweet me at The Creative Penn, send me pictures, email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com, leave a comment on the blog or the YouTube channel. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. So today's show is sponsored by Findaway Voices, and I'll play a word from them in a minute. On a personal note, I use Findaway Voices for my audiobooks, and in fact, Pilgrimage is sitting there waiting to be published right now. It's a great platform for finding a narrator or uploading your finished files and publishing them out to over 40 stores. Plus, they have promotional options, including Chirp, Apple, Barnes & Noble Audio, Spotify, and more. So I'll play their ad in a minute. But this type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing. But my time is sponsored by my patrons, especially the extra stuff on AI and futurist topics. Thanks to all those patrons who've supported the show for years and months. You're amazing. It demonstrates you find the show useful and want it to continue. Now, I always have a drop-off at the end of the month, and then wonderfully, new patrons arrive. So thanks to new patrons this week: Susan, Michael Segura, Elodie Tellier, and W. Bradford Swift. If you support the show on Patreon, you get the extra monthly Q&A, and also I have money off my courses and books and all of that kind of thing, and share behind the scenes info. You can support the show with just a few dollars or euros or whatever your currency is. They do most currencies, and you will get that extra monthly Q&A audio and the backlist. You can support the show at patreon.com, patreon.com/The Creative Penn. Right, here's a word from Findaway Voices, and then we'll get into the interview.
He's listening. She's listening. They're all searching for their next listen. Is your audiobook out there? If not, what's holding you back? After this, it won't be audiobook creation tools. Introducing Findaway Voices Marketplace, the audiobook creation platform built for a world booming with audiobooks. Voices Marketplace gives you a searchable and trusted space to connect with narrators, free production and business tools, and the power to bring your audiobooks to market quickly. We've heard everything you have asked and used that to build an audiobook creation platform for you. Plus, we give you access to the world's largest audiobook distribution network, reaching listeners through more than 40 retail and library partners. No exclusivity. You keep your rights. This is your audiobook creation platform. Ready to get started? Make it on Marketplace.
Lindsay Buroker is the author of over 100 books across epic fantasy, urban fantasy, science fiction, fantasy romance, and more. So welcome back to the show, Lindsay.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a couple years, so we'll see what's going on.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to talk to you because lots of people miss you and they miss the Six Figure Authors podcast. I do. I used to listen to that show every week and whatever it was. And we have not heard your news for a while. So you did the last main episode of Six Figure Authors in April 2022 and did a surprise extra in October 2022. But give us an update. Like, what does your book business look like now? And what have you been writing in the last year?
I feel a little bad about that October episode because it was super doom and gloom.
No, it was really good.
We're probably going to do another one, just pop in to update. But for my book business, I haven't changed a lot. I've slowed down a little bit, which it may not look like from the outside because the series I'm working on, they're shorter, like 80, 90,000 words, which compared to some of my epic fantasy and stuff, that's short. So I'm writing fewer words a day. I used to shoot for like 7 to 10,000. And now I'm just like, screw that. Maybe five, 7. But because they're shorter books, I've still been publishing as much. I don't know if that will continue. And I haven't made a lot of changes. I'm still launching new stuff into Kindle Unlimited. Things are still working pretty well for me, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on what's going on. You know, you were talking about selling direct and the people that are just doing other things and Kickstarters. And I do have the Patreon. So I'm always ready. Like if I have to pivot, I want to be prepared. And I might do a Kickstarter and try some stuff regardless. But it's a lot of work, as I think you've been talking about the Kickstarter you did. And until you actually know how much you're going to make from it, it's a bit of a question mark. Like, do I actually, like, if I'm not going to make more than I make in a month from Amazon, do I really want to put all this extra work above and beyond what I usually do? So that's why I haven't done it yet. But I am excited about all the things that people are doing now and all the ways you can make money from your books. It's pretty fun to watch all the various ways people succeed and contemplate trying some things myself.
Well, just on the Kickstarter, I mean, your social media posts are often just interesting things with dragons on them, right? Like lamps and random stuff with dragons. And if you did a Kickstarter, you would have to do merchandise of some kind because everyone will want some kind of dragon thing.
It's true. And I don't really have a go-to person for creating things like that for art and other than cover designs and such. So that's extra work finding that. And I think people want a hardback, like a signed hardback edition, which I'd be open to. But again, I haven't done it yet. So it's just all, everything would be like the first time would be the hardest. And I'm sure you could become like Chris and Dean there doing their monthly Kickstarter. They're probably like, yeah, it's like the way I am releasing on Amazon. Oh, it's no big deal. It's just another series. So I think it's just that first time that's got me hesitating a little bit because I know it will be a learning curve and work. And I did do a Kickstarter like 10 years ago. So I do have some experience with it. But now I actually have fans. So I had a few back then. Like it worked out. It was good.
Oh, what did you make? Do you remember? What did you make on that?
I was just funding my audiobooks. Yeah, because early on, it costs quite a bit to have those done. And in those days, I was doing like free Podio books. And gosh, I can't even remember, was ACX a thing? I feel like it might have been, but that was the only game in town. So audiobooks weren't profitable for me, but people wanted them. So I was funding a couple of those. And I gave away the audiobooks, but I also gave away signed paperbacks of the series, and those were very popular. So I had to sign all this stuff, and everybody wanted like, I want a custom message from one of the characters. And I'm like, of course. So that was a lot of work. And I found out how much international shipping was the hard way. Like there weren't as many calculators and stuff to warn you back then that it was going to be $50 to ship a couple books to Australia. So I ended up doing okay, but it was definitely a lot of work.
Yeah, well, as we're recording this, I'm going to the printer next week. My books are printing right now, but things have definitely changed in terms of the technology. But I'm kind of keeping this list at the moment of the new jobs that we need virtual assistants for. And I think running a Kickstarter campaign for authors, maybe Monica and Russell in their group, they have people who are going to do this, but you would have a massive Kickstarter now and you could actually hire someone to run it. And I actually think that type of job is going to be an emergent one in the future because it's like a project manager role, really. There's so much to organize, and for people who actually can drive the back end of Kickstarter and the backer kit and all that, I think that's a real skill. I mean, would you hire someone like that if you were going to do one? I mean, you wouldn't do it all yourself.
It's funny because I've actually asked someone and she said yes. So I won't out her on the show because I don't know if she wants to be like, oh, that's going to be my new job. Everybody's going to want me to run one because I think they've done a couple now. So she was this. So I am keeping that in mind. I agree. It's maybe you do it yourself the first time or with guidance, so you kind of learn everything. But yeah, I could definitely see that you make a list, right? Here's what I need done and hand it off to someone. And I think there are more jobs that are going to be available for people that are willing to, there's already lots of author assistants editing cover art, but we are seeing more opportunities for people that maybe don't, just like you don't want to manage your ads, maybe you don't want to manage your Kickstarter. And it does make sense for anyone that's thinks they're going to make enough, that if maybe you've already got an established fan base and you're doing a new installment in a series that people will say yes because they already like it. In that case, you might know you're going to make enough to pay someone and make it worth their time.
Yeah, it's interesting what changes. I feel like when we both went full time, both of us, it was 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been 2012 for me by the time I was like, oh, I'm actually making more than the old day job.
It was around
I kind of had a year, where I was sort of checked out of what I was doing before and really focused on writing. So,
I mean, and back then there just wasn't the ecosystem, there wasn't the technology that we have now. Like you said, I mean, Kickstarter was around back then, but it wasn't a place really for publishing and authors, whereas that's definitely really changed. Is there anything else that you're looking at now that you think, okay, maybe this is something more interesting, this is a way that I could do? Or, I mean, the thing is, your business is running so well, like you said. When do you think you might just go, right, I need to pivot? Or is it when the income drops?
Right. When Amazon decided, they've been cutting corners in this supposed recession we're having or going to have. Amazon's been laying people off and cutting out some things. So I'm just watching like, well, let's see if they cut on KU or change the royalty rate or something. Hopefully not. But I always try to think, well, what would I do if that happened? I think I'll try something regardless of whether that happens eventually. Just, it's kind of fun to, like, you go through different phases where you're like, oh, I'm just tired. I can't do anything. Like, I can't handle anything else. And other times where you have more energy and it sounds fun. I am also interested, like selling direct, I know is something you're doing a lot of. And there's so many more tools now to make it easy. I think you have a Shopify store. Like we didn't have, I actually sold direct an early release of one of my Emperor's Edge books, my first series. I think it was like between book 5 and 6 or something, there was a cliffhanger and people really wanted the next one. So for $10, you could buy on my site for one weekend, you'd get the manuscript, I don't think it had been edited yet. And then you'd also get the ebook when it released. And I had to do this with PayPal there was no book funnel. So I had to email them the documents. And I had to do it like when I saw the money come in. I remember for whatever reason, I was at the US Open, the tennis thing in New York when I was doing this, because why wouldn't you be on vacation while you're trying to do something like this? And so I'm sitting there in the seats watching Roger Federer. Oh, a new order came in. I have to email the ebooks to this person and then hope they know how to sideload it. So that's come a long way. So I'm a little more interested now in selling direct, that there are a lot more tools for that.
Yeah, that's so funny. I was at Superstars in Colorado with Damon Courtney, and I introduced him to someone who'd never heard of BookFunnel. And I was like, BookFunnel changed our lives. We used to have to direct people to download this Mobi file and then to teach them how to sideload it. No one even uses the phrase sideload anymore. We're so old.
I know. I don't even know how to do it anymore. Like my phone just opens up whatever, or I think most people's phones are like that now. So
yeah.
And then
the
BookFunnel has their app.
I mean, remember the customer support? It's like, well, I don't know how to get this on my Samsung granny tablet. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'll just give you your money back.
Pretty much. I was like, I think I had like bookmarked a forum post from like Smart e-reader, one of those kind of things. And I just directed people, maybe this will help you because I don't know anything about your device.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you, Damon from BookFunnel. And I did say to Damon, it's about time you came back on the show and explain, because there's so many things now that BookFunnel does. And again, this is the other thing with you and I, right? So we've been doing this a long time. We both have our processes and there are things we might not have revisited for a long time. So for me, one of the things I'm really questioning at the moment is social media. I think we even met on Twitter back in the day, and now it seems that Twitter is just spiraling the drain, and I don't necessarily want to replace it, but I find myself going more into Facebook, for example, or people going into LinkedIn, which is kind of scary. So are there things that you're questioning? I mean, is social media something you're questioning?
Well, I've actually never successfully sold books on Twitter. So I don't really care. Everybody was signing off like, oh, I'm going to Mastodon. I'm like, have fun. I will see you later. I probably just will never leave Twitter or not check it as much maybe, but I didn't feel like, oh, I got to go replace this and find some way to sell books again. Facebook, on the other hand, has been a good way to sell books for me. It's number 2 after my newsletter when I post the links there. And I think it's just that I have that demographic that's sort of mid-30s and up that's more on Facebook. A lot of my characters are that age, so it makes sense. So that one works well for me. And I like that, and I shouldn't like it maybe, but they separated your profile, like your book profile page from your personal account. So I never have to log on to my personal account anymore, and I don't. and I will once in a while, and there's a bunch of messages. I'm like, guys, I haven't posted on here since 2019. Why are you sending me messages this way? I actually answer emails better than this thing. But yeah, I am still quite active on the Facebook page. I'm happy that everybody that's done well with TikTok that's awesome. Like I've been saying for years, like, just wait, a new thing will come and like a new tactic, and you can get in early and use it. And people have, and I don't know what the next thing will be, but it's not really for me. I even gave it a shot. I hired a VA because it was very easy to hand that to someone because I didn't care. I didn't even have an account on there at the time, and nothing happened. She did it for like 5 months, book flips and things. It wasn't surprising to me, because I think the people who I see on there are on there with their faces and being funny and doing little bits and showing off their books. And I see why it works for them. If the book flip thing where they're just showing quotes is working for somebody else too, great, awesome. But I don't feel compelled to jump on every new thing. What I'm doing, like the core fundamental stuff, doesn't ever seem to change. Like maybe you try new things as they come along. And if something comes along that suits you, yay, I would be happy to. Like the next introvert social media thing. Yeah, I think that's an oxymoron. I'll be all over that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you said the core fundamental things there. So just tell people, what are those core fundamentals for you? So
releasing series as a foundation. Every now and then I divert and I do one-offs or something that's not quite the same. And sometimes it works fabulously and launches a new series. Sometimes it doesn't work. But so having the series that I build with like an arc, and I know this doesn't work in every genre. Romances have to have a new couple in each one. So they have to like make their town or something, really create a setting that brings in the cohesiveness and gets people to want to stay in that setting. But it follows an arc. And in my case, I have to do like the slow burn romance over the series. And there's like maybe a mystery of something that's going on around in the background. So something that keeps people wanting to read book after book until it's complete. So I have that at the core. And then the marketing no matter what I do, no matter what tactics change, I'm always trying to get people to try book 1. So there's and I often make book 1 free. And so I've got the newsletter, and I've never gone into building a newsletter solely on throwing stuff out there and trying to get people to sign up in order to try something, which I know people works fabulous for them and awesome. But I've always been like, here's the sign up at the end of the book. Like at the end of the book, if you want the free prequel, or if you want the other POV, like here's the hero romantic lead that we never get to see in his head in the main series. If you want some scenes from his POV, sign up for the newsletter. And that works very well. And I can tell which ones are super effective of those because people will email me because they couldn't get it. There's always like, the technology is still not perfect, right? A lot of stuff goes to people's spam folders and things. They're like, I need this. So I know that one was good because people care that they signed up for the newsletter and it never came. So that's at the core. Always trying to, get more fans onto the newsletter. I'm not as good about it. I used to do something for every series, and now when you sign up, you get like 10 things. But I figure some of that's good because it can get them interested in the series they haven't tried yet. But so that's always at the core, whether I'm spending money advertising book 1 or whether it's just a free, perma-free. With all my wide series that are in all the bookstores, I've got a book 1 free if it's 5 books or more. And those, since I've been releasing more into KU, they have fallen off, but they still are selling some, even though I may forget for a long time to try to get a book bub, or I don't get the book bubs as much anymore. I have to say my career is not dependent on BookBub in any way anymore. And it's not that I don't like them. They just don't like me as much anymore.
Yeah, I mean, things have obviously changed. I found a blog post about the launch of my first novel back when it was called Pentecost in 2011. If people are interested, it's at thecreativepenn.com/first novel. And it's like there's all these posts about writing this novel and stuff. And that book launched at 340 in the whole Amazon.com store. This is before paid ads. This is before all of this stuff, right? And I was laughing going, gosh, how much effort does it take to launch a book into under 500 on the Amazon.com store now? I mean, that is just a completely different world, isn't it?
Well, it's funny because a lot of people are not happy that it's pay to play, right? You have to advertise probably to get any visibility on Amazon. And I'm like, well, when I started, there was no way to get visibility on Amazon either because there was no way to advertise. And I did not have that experience. My books went out there and nobody bought them. And it wasn't until book 3, like I managed to get a few sales. I still remember, thank you to the guy that runs the Fantasy Book Critic for reviewing one of my books. And I remember I got a bunch of sales on Smashwords from that. And it was like, yay. But it wasn't until I started putting stuff out for free, first a short story, and later I made book 1-3 when book 3 came out, that finally people started finding stuff. Because I will say, at least when I got started, the free list on Amazon was easier to find, and there was no Kindle Unlimited, so people that were budget conscious were definitely skimming through the free list to look for books. So the things change, but having that series, and at least for me, for fiction, is kind of core. And then you can figure out each year there's some new way, right, that you're going to try to sell that first book. But having the newsletter, continuing to build the fan base, of course, is the most reliable thing, because those are all these people that are going to go out and buy your new book and support you. And I'm thankful for them big time. People, I have kind of a quirky sense of humor. It's not for everyone, but the people that it's for, I've had a lot of them say like, oh, you're my favorite author. I'm reading some other author now, but only because I'm waiting for your next book. So it's good. It's hard to find your tribe, but over time, it's kind of cumulative. The efforts do pay off over time.
Yeah, exactly. It is absolutely that. Now, before you mentioned phases of our careers, and when we get bored with something, we try something new. So, for example, a few years back, you created a new pen name, which you then outed like it's not a secret pen name anymore. It was at the beginning, right? And you wrote more the steamy romance under that name. Looking back now, are you happy that you put that under another name, or has it just become more hassle than it's worth? As in, you set up second newsletter, you set up all that other stuff for another name, and then eventually, so what are the pros and cons, I guess? What do you advise people now?
I think it was worth it at the time. Like it was part experiment too. I wanted to see, like, this was probably the end of 2014. Like, can you still start from scratch and succeed? Because there were a lot of people saying you couldn't in 2014. And now people getting started like, oh, I wish it was 2014. But so I don't regret it, but I actually probably will. I keep thinking about this. I need to get the covers redone, and I'll probably do Ruby Lionstrake. That was the name. And Lindsay Buroker, and put them on my author page too. And so people will know,
co-author.
Yeah, people will realize that, okay, these are something different, but they'll find them, because I haven't done a new book for Ruby in probably like 4 years. So sales are like way falling off, of course. Every now and then I mention, oh, by the way, I have these other books, and people are like, you have a pen name? And they'll go out and buy them. But if they can find them by searching me on Amazon, my regular name, I think, because I thought they were good stories, most of them. There might have been a couple, you get experimental. Like, I have so much respect for romance authors that can keep writing basically the same formula, in that he and she get together and they have the same kind of sex, and it's like the same in many ways.
I mean, some people do she and she, or he and he, or a whole tribe, or the harem, or
but
whatever.
You have to do whatever you start doing. You have to do that thing, or your readers are like, I'm not interested in that, and it flops. So whatever, you get kind of locked in with romance, I feel like, whereas maybe some genres are a little more accepting of straying a little bit from exactly what they thought they signed up for. But yeah, I was like, oh, let's do a threesome in this book. Why wouldn't you? And my readers were like, what?
Oh, we don't want that. Yeah.
That was like the least well-rated.
Oh, how interesting.
So I did it. I did a couple series with them, and then I was ready to go back to my main stuff. One of the reasons I had started it was because I felt like I might be publishing too often under my regular name, because I'd started writing more quickly at that point. So that was another one of the reasons I thought, well, I'll alternate. I'll do the pen name and then my regular name. But yeah, at this point, I'm like, nobody cares. They just catch up when they catch up, or some of them read a book a day and read it and like, when's the next one coming out? So nobody seems to care as much. There was also a lot of negative, like people talking about, oh, if you write fast, you must be just throwing out crap. So that might have been in the back of my head too, like, oh, I shouldn't do more than a book every 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4. Are you over that now, do you think?
Yeah, I just do whatever at this point.
Yeah.
I think part of it is you get to a stage in your career and also in your life where you stop caring as much. People are you're always going to have your detractors, right? And I just delete those emails these days. I used to feel you had to be really good and a good customer service person and write back some polite, well, thank you for sharing your opinion. I will take this under consideration. And I'm like, delete. I don't have time. I just don't have the bandwidth that I want to spend on responding to the critics.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you said that. And people listening, I hope you can hear that we've been doing this for a while now. And I still have difficult days. Like today, I had a bit of a difficult day. I got a whole load of very negative comments on my blog. And my first response was, I was like, no, you're wrong. I want to argue with you. And then I was like, no, it's my blog. Delete, delete, delete.
I know there's a lot of blogs where they start to get more popular, and all of a sudden, well, not so much today because who blogs anymore, right?
Well, but they would just show notes of the podcast.
They would just turn the comments off, and you're like, well, because you got tired of dealing with it, so you can tell you get more popular, and you get 95% great feedback, love the books, and then there's those couple,
and you only remember the difficult ones, or at least I know. And so I went for a walk. I was like, look, you think of all the people who are lovely and want this content or whatever, this book or whatever, but it's the negative ones that are difficult to get out your head. I say things change, but are there any sort of things that you feel you haven't achieved? Like, you've sold tons of books, you've made lots of cash. I mean, are there things that you still want to achieve as an author?
I will probably keep doing the same things, but I would still enjoy, like, if somebody came and said, like, hey, we'd like to do a movie or a Netflix series or something. And I know it would be horrible because they're never like true to the books, and all my fans would be like, oh, they're awful, the book was better. But I would enjoy, like, that would be kind of neat to have somebody make something. But I think sort of fantasy and sci-fi are really expensive to make, so I don't know what the odds are. Every now and then you hear somebody got picked up, and then will the movie ever get made? That's really rare, right? They'll option it but not make it, so that would be fun. But it's not something that I can control. I'm not going to go knocking on doors and try to pitch my novel or hire someone to. That's not me. I'm very much, if they want it, they'll come to me and we'll talk.
Yeah. And I love this about you. I often use you as an example of a relaxed author who mainly focuses on writing. I mean, that has been your main marketing, is, like you said, releasing a series. And for you, that's like an 8-book series of over 120,000 words each or something. I mean, it's not like one of my series when they're like 60,000 words. So that's kind of one of the main things you've done. But you also said that you are writing less now, 5,000 to 7,000 words per day, as opposed to over sort of 10,000. But tell us, how do you write? What is your writing process, and has that changed?
Well, it's not very romantic or what you imagine with writers, but I feel like I'm kind of a factory. I write my rough draft in maybe 2 or 3 weeks, do an editing pass, send it off to my beta readers, and then I start working on the next thing while they have it. And they'll send it back, and I do some tweaks and usually another quick editing pass and send it to my editor and back to the other thing. And by the time it's ready to go, eventually out to my typo hunters and Patreon, and eventually out to Amazon for the exclusive stuff, I'm usually sending the next book off to the beta readers. So I just kind of keep cycling through, and maybe I take a few days off between projects here and there. But I just keep things rolling along and book the cover artist and editor well in advance, and I don't always know what they're going to get. Like, the editor's like, I wonder what I'm getting this summer. Something. I keep you working. So they're very nice to be flexible with that stuff. But yeah, and as far as like ideas and sort of the process, this is one of the reasons I'm still writing a lot, is I still have like 3 or 4 ideas ahead that I want to get to. Like when I finish this series, I want to do this and this, and then I'm going to do sci-fi. And so that's why I haven't really slowed down that much. And I figure someday, maybe, I don't know that I'll ever run out of ideas. I feel like some people are just like that. Like every time I start reading, I try to mostly read other people's fiction in between my projects, because otherwise I start, like, it gives me ideas. I'm just reading their story and like, oh yeah, I would do that, but I would do it this way. And then I'm like, I should do that. Of course I should write one like that. It's like, you're still working on another series. Stop. You're not going to jump off right now and start that. So I listen to nonfiction anytime, but for some reason, fiction, I just start reading somebody's book and I'm off on, oh, no, this is what I want to do. So I have to be careful and do that sort of. Yeah.
But do you still just sit down and type? Is that how you write, or do you dictate, or what do you do?
I do type. I've never gotten into the dictation. I've tried it hiking, but my dogs have always been like, they've always had like hunting breeds. I don't hunt, but they're that breed. And so they're always off. Like I have to pay attention to them when I'm out there. So, and then there's so many errors when I've tried it that I'm like, what is this? When I try to go back and do it. And I feel like I could do it. I think you just talked about this somewhere. You can do it on the nonfiction more easily than on the fiction.
Yeah.
But I actually type pretty quickly. So I'm not sure even if I got good at it. And then your voice gets tired. Like I go to a conference or something and I'm dying after, because I never have to talk in my real life as an introvert. I'm like, now and then you go out into the world and speak with people, but not like these long extended things. So you end up having to kind of train your voice to be able to handle that much too. So after so many years,
humans,
well, just to narrate a book into your device. But yeah, after so many years that there's not a lot of, like, I don't really think about the typings of the words. I'm just kind of seeing the story playing out in my head. And it makes for some interesting typos and stuff later, because the brain just, I tend to revert back to like the words I learned when I was younger. They're really drilled in there. And so if I learn something incorrectly, like which shear to use, whether it's SHEER, SHEAR, yeah, my brain doesn't know that when I'm just writing the script for the story playing in my head. So I get a lot of errors. Thank goodness for my editors and beta readers. And every now and then they get some entertainment when I did not find the correct word or cannot remember. Ricocheted has 2 T's, or is it 1 T? See, I can't even remember.
And who cares? Because we have editors and we have Pro Writing Aid and we have all of that. Do you have like a full-time editor and a full-time cover designer?
Well, I think I give them enough work to actually, it's my audiobook narrator. I've joked, like, I paid her enough last year she could go buy a new car. I mean, I know she pays her producer and stuff out of that too. Just like us, we have expenses beyond just the top line income we get. But I have people that I've been working with so long that they usually just make a slot for me every month, like my editor does. They're not full-time with me, but they actually definitely keep them busy.
For sure. And then just on health, I want to mention health, because you said you're a factory. But which has
is that not healthy, Joanna?
It doesn't sound too healthy, Lindsay. How do you keep your factory self healthy?
Well, I actually don't spend like that. 5,000 to 7,000 words is about 3 hours of work of solid. As a writer, you wander off often, but so I'm not really working more than a normal day anymore. Like I used to early on, because I was doing the writing and the day job, and you're learning everything and doing everything you can with marketing, because nothing's working in the beginning. You're just like, how do I make this work? How do I sell books? Now it's more of a system, so I don't have to spend much time like on the marketing side anymore. So, and the writing is the thing I enjoy the most. So it's less onerous. Like I actually get upset on days when like I have a couple appointments or something and I was like, oh, I can't write, or it's going to be all broken up. So it's just no good. I'm just not going to write that day. I love my days where I just don't have anything else to do. I can just have my laptop and get cozy with a dog under the blankets and work from an unergonomic position on the couch.
But you do walk with your dog.
I walk a lot. Like most of my health stuff, is like from exercise. Like right now, my IT bands are all, it's like, oh, stop walking. And the IT band's bad because I was running and walking so much, I had plantar fasciitis. So I got a Peloton and started riding. And like, well, now I get the IT band thing from.
You need a foam roller. You need to
I
be
have
in pain.
one. I have all the things. I do all the trigger point and rolling and, working on stuff. But yeah, I do take breaks, but I find that a lot of times on the days where I'm trying to take off, I'm just like, oh, this stuff sucks. I'd rather be writing, like, because usually you end up doing all your errands and things on your supposed off day. But I could be better about taking vacations. But I always end up thinking about stuff while I'm, like I said, I start relaxing and reading somebody else's book, and pretty soon I've got my phone out and I'm taking notes with ideas. So I'm not the best at, like, I do try to have a good diet and exercise every day and make sure I'm not like sitting for hours and hours or anything like that. But I'm probably not the best model of work-life balance. But you have to decide that. People have to decide that. Are you going to have work-life balance, or are you going to be like successful? Like, it's really rare for somebody that's really chill and just working a little bit when they feel motivated to also be successful and reach their financial goals. Like, we don't want to believe that. Like, especially some generations don't want to believe that, but you have to pick, like, which do you want? It's very rare for somebody to like really get both.
Yeah, I think that is a good tip. And I mean, I certainly would have worked harder since I left my day job.
Well, that's just it. I used to work like 3 hours a day when I was doing blogging and writing content and made money from Amazon not Amazon, but Amazon affiliate programs and other affiliate programs and Google AdSense ads. And I used to work a lot less and play a lot more World of Warcraft.
And you gave that up, didn't you? I
had to give it up. I was too addicted. So I had to give it up to start finishing books. But I actually used to work less, but I was less happy because I was writing about crap I didn't care that much about. Like, I was able to work from home, so that was cool. But it wasn't fulfilling writing. Like, I really enjoyed that I can tell stories for a living now. But that's the trap. Once you're doing what you love, you never stop working. You want to just keep doing it. And even I talk about like retiring. I really just say, this is my goal to where I'll consider I'm completely financially independent. And then I don't care about book sales and stuff, but I wouldn't stop writing. That's like, what else would you do that it's fun for you and it helps other people? Like, you get emails from people that are like, oh, I'm having a really hard time. I just got through chemotherapy or lost somebody, and your book's I really needed the laughs. So you feel like, oh, I'm actually it's not just about me and how much money I can make. I'm actually helping people in a small way.
Yeah, it's an escape from your life into a story. And I totally agree with you. I mean, you and I have also always been interested in money and finance and investing. And this is not any kind of investment advice. We're not financial advisors, blah, blah, blah. But both of us have always thought about that side of things, right? We've never just said, right, this is cash flow money. We have also tried to put money away in investments and like property. And I know you've done more of that than me. So when we talk about retirement, I guess, like you say, we're not talking about giving it all up, but we might change the amount of time on it. Or I don't know, would you even bother book marketing if you were financially independent?
I'd probably do what I'm doing now, which is emailing the newsletter, maintaining the newsletter, and then throwing some money into Amazon ads. So that's sort of in the last couple of years about all I've done for that stuff. Maybe I would write less. I probably would, but I don't know. We see. It's not like I couldn't slow down now.
Yeah.
But I haven't yet. Like I said, there's like 4 things waiting in the wings that I want to work on. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but I always, as somebody, and I know you don't have kids either, and then I don't have siblings or anything like that. So, and I'm not married. So I never have had a safety net. So I've always been conscious of that. And that's what's made me like, okay, I want to get, while the getting is good, get whatever the saying is while you can, make extra to put away for the future. It's, in America, we have Social Security, but it's pretty lame. So you wouldn't want to depend on that.
I don't think you're going to need that. No, but it's interesting because you're exactly right. I mean, this is another thing that's missing really in the community is this sort of dead indie author estate management, which is interesting. And I was very interested that Justin Bieber, the Beeb, is one of the musicians who has sold his entire backlist. Now, he's a young man, like he's in his 30s, I guess. So he's got the rest of his life. He can literally just say, well, it's day one and I'm going to start all over again. So he sold his IP and everything in the future, I guess, is his again. So what are your thoughts on like licensing or even packaging up and selling your IP as a backlist? Or what are we going to do with dead indie authors like ourselves at some point?
Yeah, it is a question mark. Like obviously in his case, super popular. So there's a lot of money there. In our case, yeah, I don't know because there's so much content being put out right now. I don't know how many books that we're producing are going to really outlive us. You know, there's things, even when you look back at the 20th century, there were so few books that remained in print and became kind of perennial things that the publishers kept selling or the estates did. I'm not saying it can't happen, especially if you've got somebody that would take over, maybe even keep publishing new titles under your name, like if you had a kid or something. But yeah, it's a little bit of a question mark when you don't have somebody like right now. I'm just like, somebody's going to get my passwords and like they can do what they want. I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm maybe realistic in believing that because I see how much things drop off when I stop publishing. And I'm like, well, if I stop publishing for a year or 3 or 4 years, how much can the Amazon ads alone or whatever keep things going? And maybe there'd be some, but I don't know that it would be at such a level that it's worth having somebody full-time managing your estate. And I don't know, like if somebody came and said, hey, I want to buy your backlist, maybe I'd entertain that. I don't know that I've ever had a hit or been popular enough that that's going to happen.
But I also think you are a very quiet success because partly you're an introvert and you don't particularly care or you don't want fame or attention. You'd rather just stay quiet where you are. But you're very successful. And I feel like at some point, a bit like these music industry people have been going around buying up backlists, that's going to be the future, especially if you think about how big publishing, the Penguin Random House thing, they're not allowed to buy Simon and Schuster. And I know a lot of indie authors who have had offers for their backlists, and most of them say no because they know how much money they can make over the next few decades if things continue as they are. But given how fast you can write, like you said, if someone gave you a good offer for a chunk of cash, then I don't know, why not?
Well, maybe, but would it be a good author? Because publishers never want to give you very much.
No, but it would have to be a good offer. That's what I mean. I presume the Beeb got a decent offer. But...
yeah, I would think so. Well, and I'm also like, I don't want a whole lot. Like, I'm just like, what would I do with, I want to make sure I don't need anything in retirement and I don't have to like step down my standard of living. So that's one point, but I'm almost there now. So yes. I'm like, what am I going to do with whatever more they would offer, $10 million or something? I'm like, well, buy some more dividend stocks, I guess. And, right
exciting.
Now I actually am kind of geek out on that stuff, but right now I'm like planning, well, what charities can I leave stuff to eventually? And maybe you find a charity that they can manage your IP or have maybe there'll be more of an industry around this stuff going forward. Like, I feel like it's still hard to find somebody that can run your Amazon ads effectively. So
yeah, let alone your estate.
Yeah. So, but things are evolving. Maybe the AIs will run our estates and they won't even charge a fee.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I have, again, totally other topic, but I have sort of postulated a blockchain where if you set things up right on a blockchain and have smart contracts, that should just be able to go to whatever wallet you set up in the future. So it could be more automatic in the future than it is now. Whereas if you go to these agencies, they're literally manually still running all these reports and sending out money. But that's completely unrealistic for the future. But I mean, so many interesting things have happened since we've known each other and so much ahead. So just as we finish up now, thing you're particularly excited about other than dividend stocks?
This is funny. This is actually why I watch your show, because you're so positive. And I'm a bit of a glass half empty person. Like, I feel there's a lot of anxiety, collective anxiety in the world right now about everything. So it's hard for me to think, whoa, what's happening that's super exciting. Like I like that there's more tools. So especially newer indie authors that don't have money for editor and cover designer, they're going to be able to, you go to whatever AI, make me a cover, and it's going to be good enough. I guess I'm excited to, I don't know, be more introverty going forward and maybe eventually back off answering emails. But I still like that and the fans like it. So it's hard. I think you've tried to get away from answering emails at one point too. And,
yeah, it didn't work out really.
Yeah. It's hard to find somebody, the readers get so excited. Sometimes some of them are so excited when you answer them and, write something that says you read their email. So it's hard to want to just voice that off on someone else. But I think there's more tools coming along, and it's going to be a lot easier to just sort of focus on the thing you like and that you're really good at. And like, I already do only auto ads almost exclusively for Amazon. There's people that they're in there making their 5,000 keywords. I'm like, well, if that's working for you, great. But I honestly, I get charged more when I try to pick keywords than if I just let the auto ads run and give it a max bid. And it's doing pretty good. But I obviously don't have to worry as much about the budget. And I find that if you're selling enough, you get organic sales too. So it kind of evens things out. But if you're doing $5 a day or something, you're not going to get any charts and you're not going to get any organic sales. So you have to be really careful about what you're spending. But I think I'm seeing all this stuff improving and getting easier. So you no longer have to be a marketing major as well as an author. And even managing the finances and everything gets easier. There's so many more tools these days for that stuff. So that's one thing I guess I'm enjoying watching where things are going and finding more tools to help us.
So where can people find you and your books online?
LindsayBuroker.com. I need to update that.
And you mentioned the six-figure authors might return again.
Well, for like a one-off. I want to do something positive, like how to handle the recession in a happy way, like how to keep the books selling. Because I am still seeing books are doing well. Maybe there's more KU reads right now than purchases, or maybe people who are wide are finding that their free stuff is doing better and there's a little fewer sales. But those times don't last. So just survive, and then we can thrive in the future.
Fantastic. Well, we will look forward to that. Thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to talk.
Thank you, and happy writing, everyone.
So I hope you found the interview with Lindsay interesting and that it gave you an insight into how a career shakes out over the long term. I mean, we both still love creating. I hope you can tell that. And we both still do stuff for marketing, but the basics remain the same. More books, connecting with readers through email and a couple of other ways, and investing in multiple streams of income. It's simple, but it's not easy, right? But yeah, it was lovely to catch up with Lindsay, and hopefully there'll be more on the six-figure authors soon. So next week, I'm talking to Jeff Adams about accessibility for authors and content creators. And Jeff gives some ways we can make our websites, social media, and our books more accessible to those who consume content in different ways. Definitely an interesting and important topic. In the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes and show notes, available at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. You can also get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can tweet me at The Creative Penn or find me on Facebook at The Creative Penn. See you next time.